We have a team of correspondents covering all angles of this story. Tareq Abu Azzoum is live for us inside Gaza. Mohammed Jamjoom is in West Jerusalem. Charles Stratford joins us from Tel Aviv, and Imran Khan is in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. I want to start with you, Tareq, who is live in Gaza. What's the situation where you are? It's heading into the evening in Gaza. How are residents preparing for another night of strikes?
Right now the Israeli drones are covering all the sky of the Gaza Strip, looking for the next target, as Gazans are waiting for the new Israeli attacks over their houses and their infrastructure. From time to time, the Israeli naval forces are destroying main coastal roads in order to crack down any possible infiltration attempt to the Israeli adjacent coastal towns. In terms of the Israeli, let's say, crimes against Palestinians, the victims of Palestinians today are increasing, and one of the most prominent victims that were killed today by the Israeli airstrikes is Abu Daqqa family in Khuza'a village, eastern of Khan Yunis governorate. Simply, the family has been wiped out from the civil registry. More than 22 members were killed. Oh my gosh, sound of explosion right now.
Tareq, just explain just what's happening where you are, because that certainly sounded very close to you.
Now we have heard a sound of explosion inside the Gaza Strip. Actually, this explosion was widely overheard in the Gaza Strip. Till now, we cannot really locate the place and the location of the explosion or the bombardment, simply because it's absolutely dark and we cannot clearly see here in a very good way. But you can generally hear throughout the background that Israel restarted again launching airstrikes against Palestinians inside the Gaza Strip. It's important to mention that Abu Daqqa family has wiped out from the civil registry. More than 22 members were killed by the Israeli occupation air forces. 7 of them were children, and till this current moment, civil teams are trying to evacuate 6 members who are still stuck under the rubble of the destroyed house. Simply, it becomes so obvious through the Israeli policy of targeting that Israel does not knock the door. It directly hits civilians amid international negligence about what's happening in the Gaza Strip, and amid no clear mediation to stop the current conflict erupted between the Hamas movement and the Israeli occupation army.
Yeah, Tareq, the Israeli Prime Minister has been warning people near the Gaza Strip to evacuate, but that's certainly not a possibility for many Palestinians, is it?
In fact, Palestinians have already evacuated the houses, especially Palestinians who are living close to the borders in eastern areas. They receive different notice and messages on their cell phones from the Israeli occupation forces, informing them to evacuate their house before being targeted. And oh my gosh, another explosion in the same place, it seems. It was a little bit overheard.
Okay, right. If you need to take cover, just let us know,
It's okay, it's okay. It's a little bit far away, but it's overheard at night. It's important to mention that Palestinians now are displaced from their original houses now into the UNRWA's schools inside the Gaza Strip, which turned into safe shelters for them. Meanwhile, a school today has been hit by the Israeli airstrikes without making clear, let's say, differentiation between civil and militants generally. So the Gaza Strip situation is deteriorating, and there is an explosion, as you can clearly see on the background. It's going to be a little bit heavy right now. It's absolutely high. You're going to right now overhear it. I think this building has been leveled to the ground throughout an airstrike that had been carried out by the Israeli air forces. This is the night inside the Gaza Strip. Everything turned upside down, the lives generally deteriorating due to the wide range of attacks carried out by the occupation forces. Oh my gosh.
OK, Tareq, we're going to leave it there and we'll cross back to you
way.
throughout the evening. It certainly sounds like it is a dynamic situation. We're seeing live pictures from Gaza, and given it is the night time, it's difficult to see, but we are seeing the sky being lit up by airstrikes. So thank you so much for that comprehensive coverage. That was Tareq Abu Azzoum in Gaza. And Yumna al-Said visited an area where civilians have been seeking shelter in Gaza.
Currently here at one of the UNRWA schools, where more than 2,000 people have taken this school as shelter. The people that are in this school have moved from their homes that were across the or adjacent to the Israeli-Gaza borders. Now they have all moved here. Some of them moved late last night, while others came here this morning. Also, some of the families that we have met have had their homes destroyed, and that's why they had to come here to the UNRWA schools for shelter. UNRWA has told us that it has prepared 44 schools in total, 44 schools and shelters all together across the Gaza Strip for the displaced families. They have also said that over 22,000 people have been displaced and are now taking shelter in their schools. These Palestinian families have experienced the fleeing of their homes and the displacement many times before. Some families here say that this is not the first or the second or even the third time. Those people who have their homes adjacent to the border, every single time there is any kind of escalation, they are forced to flee their homes because they are afraid of artillery fire, they are afraid of the airstrikes that bombard their homes as the first bombardments take place. We're bringing you these pictures from one of the 44 UNRWA schools available for the Palestinian displaced families across the Gaza Strip. Yumna Sayed, Al Jazeera, Gaza Strip.
Mohammed Jamjoom is standing by for us in West Jerusalem. Hello there, Mo. The Cabinet, as we were reporting on at the start of the show, has approved the declaration of war. Talk us through what that means.
Yeah, that's right, Emily. And yeah, let's just try to take this step by step right now to explain to our viewers where we are when it comes to this declaration of war. Of course, we heard yesterday from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that basically he said the country is at war. Then you had the cabinet meeting. The cabinet approved the declaration of war. That means that the prime minister and the defense minister can essentially make decisions going forward without having to consult the cabinet when it comes to every specific action. What happens next is that this goes to a specific committee within the country's parliament, the Knesset. That committee will vote on the declaration of war. It is expected they will approve the declaration of war. And then after that, at some point, possibly later in the day tomorrow, we're told that the prime minister will go in front of the Knesset, in front of parliament, and will then declare that the country is officially at war. That essentially formalizes it, legalizes the war declaration going forward. Now, there's a lot of concern as to what this means going forward. You have a lot of people here that are concerned about what exactly is happening with Israel's border with Lebanon and how much tension there is. That many people here expect that after this declaration of war is formalized in the Knesset, that at some point there will be a ground invasion into Gaza. So that's another concern right now. You also have a lot of people speculating about the possible political ramifications for the prime minister. The fact that something that's considered to be such a huge intelligence failure occurred on his watch, that's something that people think that he's going to have to reconcile with at some point. Now, at the moment, you are seeing signs amongst the political classes here that people are going to be essentially rallying around the flag, uniting. You have members of the opposition who have offered to join a unity government with the prime minister. You have the prime minister minister, who has also said that he's willing to look into these overtures moving forward. So a lot of moving parts. We're expecting to hear a lot more details in the hours and the days to come. Emily?
Mohammed, you've been speaking to a number of people on the ground. What have they been saying?
So, Emily, throughout the day, I've been speaking to people in occupied East Jerusalem and in West Jerusalem, and they are still very much in a state of shock as to what happened. People throughout the day telling me that they never thought they would have seen something like this take place in a country where the security services are considered to be so vaunted, to have such a reputation for thoroughness. Many of them have asked, how could an intelligence failure like this have happened at a time like this? They are just still very much processing what happened. They are saying, many of them have told me that they believe that what happened was far worse than what happened during the Yom Kippur War in 1973. And they're very worried about what exactly is going to be happening next. Emily?
Mohammed, thanks so much for the update. Mohammed Jamjoom there. Let's cross to Charles Stratford now, who's in Tel Aviv for us. Charles, what's the situation from a military perspective? We're hearing there is the chance of a substantial ground invasion of Gaza.
Well, yes, that's what all intimations, certainly from the Israeli military, are suggesting. We know in the south certainly of Tel Aviv, our correspondent throughout the day has reported seeing tanks and heavy artillery moving towards the Gaza Strip. We also know that there could be tens, if not more than that, hundreds of thousands of Israeli soldiers that are certainly either being put on standby or moving in that direction. We know what a complicated operation it could be. Also, let's not forget, the amount of Israeli soldiers that were lost during the 2014 invasion of Gaza. But by all intents and purposes, it seems as if some sort of ground offensive could well take place. Indeed, a sea offensive as well, an offensive from the sea. And we just heard those incredible airstrikes, those thuds, those attacks that are ongoing in Gaza as well. So you can only imagine the sheer terror of the more than 2 million Gazans that are often described as living in the largest prison in the world. Meanwhile, the situation here in Tel Aviv has been quiet for the majority of the day, but there is a very strange atmosphere here. The streets are virtually empty, businesses are closed, and Israelis and Palestinians living here are very concerned about any kind of escalation. We visited one of the sites where one of the 150 Palestinian-launched missiles landed in the centre of the city last night. That hit a business, completely destroyed it. People very distraught. One woman saying that she was utterly horrified by what was going on and the level of suffering being experienced by both sides. In her words, she said, but at least I have somewhere to hide. So there is a great sense of sort of trepidation here, as indeed all indications suggest that there is going to be some very sizable Israeli military response in Gaza.
And as you mentioned, we're already hearing and seeing that this evening. Charles, the death toll has risen considerably today, Sunday, to more than 650 Israelis, including the deaths of dozens of people at that dance party in southern Israel, essentially right near the Gaza Strip. How is that attack being received, that such a surprise attack could happen?
As I say, people are in an utter sense of shock. They want answers. They want to know how such an attack could have happened. And as we heard Mohammed alluding to there, they want answers from the intelligence service. They want answers from the military. There is increasing video evidence of huge, great gaps in the security. How could Hamas fighters penetrate that fence, seemingly broad daylight, with such ease? Military analysts here in Israel will say that the military had left their guard down in that area. It was obviously the Yom Kippur holiday. They also point to the fact that a lot of Israeli military resources from Gaza have in recent months been redirected to the occupied West Bank. And that could have caused what has turned out to be such an unprecedented and massive attack. But yeah, the pictures coming out of southern Israel are absolutely shocking and having a huge effect on the morale of Israelis and the Palestinian Israelis that live in this city. The south, you know, seeing what was reported to be 200 bodies at that party near the Gaza Strip having been found. We've seen pictures today of firefights, gunfights happening on the roads, as we understand Hamas fighters that have taken control of houses in some of these settlements, reports of them taking hostages, family hostages, inside some of those houses. We've seen long lines of burnt-out vehicles that have been attacked. I mean, Israelis of this generation, of the younger generation and older generations, have never seen anything like this happen. So, yeah, it is a great sense of shock and a great sense of trepidation as we go into another night. It would not be inconceivable, certainly with respect to Tel Aviv, if there was not another missile strike from Gaza. As I say, 150 or so missiles were fired towards Tel Aviv last night. So it's going to be very interesting, but there are a lot of very afraid people right the way across this country and the occupied territories as day turns to night on the second day of this war.
Charles, thanks so much for the update. Charles Stratford live for us in Tel Aviv. And as he was saying, that we can actually see some of those airstrikes happening as we speak, as we go to air in Gaza. It's difficult to see. We thought we were going to go to those live pictures, but we'll now cross to Imran. Imran Khan is in Ramallah for us. Imran, have we heard from the Palestinian Authority at all today, which is Sunday?
There's been several negotiations that have been going on between the international community and the Palestinian Authority. On the Palestinian Authority's part, what they want to do, and they're negotiating with Egypt right now, is for Egypt to open the Rafah border crossing, which is in their territory, into Gaza so they can get in humanitarian aid for those that need it the most. Also, they're very clear, though, when they're talking to the international community, saying that this is a result of the occupation and a result of the fact that the international community simply hasn't put enough pressure on Israel to lift the siege of Gaza, to stop the occupation of here in the occupied West Bank and occupied East Jerusalem. In fact, but here, where I am, Ramallah right now, but generally across the occupied West Bank, it's been a show of support for Hamas. A general strike was called. That was the first thing. And legal offices were shut. Government offices were shut. Schools have been shut. Shops have been shut. Anything that might make a society function is simply closed down. I'm just going to get out the way and show you. This is the quietest I've actually seen Ramallah in a very long time. Now, sporadically throughout the day, there have been protests showing support for Hamas within Menara Square, which you can just see down there. You speak to people here, and what they tell you is very simple. If you treat people like animals, you shouldn't be surprised if they fight back. Now, this fight back has taken the people in the occupied West Bank by surprise. They didn't think they would see anything like this in their lifetimes, but they are coming out and showing support for Hamas. And it just goes to show you that feeling is actually something that's been seen not just here in Ramallah, but across the occupied West Bank. Now, what the Israelis have done within the occupied West Bank is they've actually shut roads down. So, for example, you can't get from Bethlehem to Ramallah. You can't get from Jenin to Nablus. You can't go from village to village. The Israelis have effectively turned it into an archipelago of separation, and that's a deliberate move on their part. We travelled into Ramallah yesterday. We were stopped at the Ofer checkpoint whilst they tried to figure out whether I was actually going to be allowed into Ramallah. So that's what's going on right now. But like I say, Emily, the day of strike and a show of support for Hamas.
All right, we appreciate the update as always. Imran Khan in Ramallah for us.